like a pink light, or actually, I don't even know what color it was. It wasn't like any color I'd ever seen before.
Welcome to another edition of Film Seizure at the Movies. This is Jeff Arbuckle.
This is Jason Oliver.
And we went and saw Richard Stanley's adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft's Color Out of Space.
Yes, we did.
And we're going to get into this movie here in just a few minutes. Real quick, some quick housekeeping. Real quick. New episodes of Film Seizure. That's with both me and Jason.
Yes.
Every Wednesday.
Yes, indeed.
I do Monster Mondays every Monday afternoon. You can just go over to filmseizure.com. You'll find it there. It's good stuff. We do these Film Seizure at the Movies every now and then. Sometimes it's just me. Sometimes it's both of us. Sometimes a third person by the name of Chuck Moore is with us.
Yes.
Then one thing I do want to give quick advertisement to, in about a week or so, you will hear on a very special episode of Film Seizure at the Movies, mine and Jason's rundown of 2019 in review.
Hell yeah.
So we
saw lots of movies.
We did. We were talking a little bit about that before we started recording this. So,
yes, sir.
All right. So Richard Stanley. Jason, you know a little bit more about Richard Stanley. Give us a quick rundown of who this fella is.
Oh, boy. Well, if you've listened to our hardware episode, we get into it a lot. But in a nutshell, Richard Stanley, film director, believe he's South African or something of some sort. But he's kind of a quirky dude. He made a movie in the 90s that made Miramax a bunch of money called Hardware. And that's the episode that we reviewed on Film Seizure about a year or so back.
About a year and a half ago.
And it's got mixed results.
I dug it quite a bit.
Yeah, I really, really liked the movie, but we both agreed it kind of fizzles out towards the last act. But the world building is phenomenal.
Yeah, the world is aces.
He's he's very good at building atmosphere.
Yeah, and I kind of get the impression that he's a little bit of a big ideas guy, maybe not a guy, not a details guy.
Yeah, I think
we'll get to some of my critiques of this film.
That could very well be. I think he also is a little gun shy about that because I think that what he's probably most famous for, and we talked about this again in the Hardware episode, is he got kicked off of the set of his movie The Island of Dr. Moreau. And there's a documentary about it, which is really, really fascinating, and it really gets into the psyche of Richard Stanley. And he's honestly, like, you listen to him speak, and he's very articulate, very normal guy. But
normal within,
sure,
there's margin.
He's got some pretty crazy documentaries as well. Like, he's got a documentary that he made a couple years ago called The Other World, which is about essentially almost Lovecraftian in a way, about this sort of veil of reality that he believes exists in this place in France where he lives. And there's all sorts of folklore around it, and it goes back, centuries in this area. It's interesting.
Huh, okay.
But so he's sort of a mysticist, a little bit of a folklorist. He's probably a little bit Wiccan.
He probably listens to a lot of The Cure.
Yeah, probably likes The Cure. I would peg him as a dark wave guy.
Yeah, sure.
But he hasn't made a movie since he tried to make Island of Dr. Moreau. His last actual feature movie was Dust Devil, which came out a couple years after Hardware, which is also really good, which we learned that Nick Cage was almost the lead in.
Yeah, that's odd.
Which was odd.
Yeah. But so he's been gone for a little while.
Yeah.
He is he was one of those guys that when you watch that documentary about the Island of Dr. Moreau, it's called Lost Soul.
Lost Soul, yep.
And people are talking about, like, this is the next big, visionary type of guy. Visionary gets placed on a lot of directors, I think, too much. But this was a guy who I think they really thought was the real deal. Like, they were very hot on him, and that's why, him coming in to get Island of Dr. Moreau, which was a passion project of his.
Very much so, yeah.
Because he in that documentary, he talked about how poorly adapted it was over the years. Like Island of Lost Souls was made as early as 1932 with
right,
and that's a pretty good movie too. I mean, it's so good that is it Devo quotes it.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's where I think that I do think that Richard Stanley is a details guy. I think that he maybe dives too much in the details, and that's one of the things that got him kicked off of Moreau.
That and
it's because he's so into every aspect of the film, and he's very controlling about all those aspects.
Well, it doesn't help when you have like Marlon Brando at his absolute craziest,
and also
and
probably Val Kilmer at his absolute craziest,
yes.
and drugged out. Val Kilmer, I'm sure he was probably on a massive coke habit.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
At that point in his career.
Yeah, I'm sure. And he's also coming off being Batman. He's the biggest star in the world.
Right.
So anyway, all right. So you got this, and now over the last couple of years or so, we hear about him making a new movie.
Yeah.
Based on an H.P. Lovecraft short story?
Well, there's another movie that had been rumored before this one, called Malware, which is sort of a spiritual sequel to Hardware, right?
Okay.
But obviously Malware computer based, right?
Right.
So I'd heard about that a few years ago, and then nothing really seemed to come of it. But apparently Richard Stanley has just been writing and writing and writing for basically the last 20 years, and he has lots of ideas. And this Lovecraftian script just kind of happened to hit the sensibilities of Elijah Wood, who runs Spectre Vision.
Okay.
And Spectre Vision is also the studio who put out Mandy.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say the sheriff in this is one of the producers of Mandy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I guess Elijah Wood has a particular fondness for Lovecraftian horror, and was looking for a project that fit that bill. And I'm sure he runs in the same circles as David Gregory at Severin, who has been a champion of Richard Stanley for several years now.
Well, they released Lost Soul.
He directed Lost Soul. Yeah, exactly.
So, it's funny. If you go on Facebook and you know enough people in their 30s and 40s, it seems like the whole fucking world is into Lovecraft.
Yeah, right. which is funny because I don't really know a lot about Lovecraft.
I know more about his bad ideas than I do his stories.
Right? Yeah, of course. I'm not like a huge follower of his writings. I've never read anything by Lovecraft. What I know of Lovecraft mostly comes from the fact that it's cosmic sort of tentacle horror, right?
Oh boy.
And then pretty much Stuart Gordon.
Yeah.
That's what I know about Lovecraft.
Right.
Is Stuart Gordon's version of Lovecraft.
Right, which is also when I got home last night, I was talking to a friend of ours, and I was like, "Yeah, man, I don't think maybe I don't get Lovecraft. Maybe I get the Lovecraft that somebody like Stuart Gordon can kind of make malleable into his vision, but somebody who takes it literally, maybe I'm not into it. Maybe that's not my thing.
Maybe. I mean, you hear Lovecraftian thrown around a lot, right? And there's a lot of stuff that's Lovecraftian horror.
Right.
And like The Mist. Stephen King's The Mist is a lot of what Stephen King writes is Lovecraftian.
Well, I had just done an episode that's going to come out in March of Monster Mondays for Pacific Rim. That, too, is Lovecraftian.
Absolutely.
It's these different kind of creatures coming through a dimensional rift to try to take over the world. And terraform it for their needs.
Yeah.
That's Lovecraft.
Absolutely.
There's a big difference, though, in Pacific Rim and in this. And we'll that's one of my big complaints about this. So I think one of the things that becomes very, very noticeable to people, aside from the fact that I think a lot of people hear the name Richard Stanley and they're kind of piqued by that, they get really piqued by H.P. Lovecraft.
Yes.
And then it's a full-on bonkers out of your mind peaked when it's like, wait, it's Nicolas Cage too starring in this? So it's kind of that perfect storm of everybody must see this movie.
Yeah.
And
it's definitely got that buzz about it.
Yeah. And I don't want to say that I hate this movie. You and I have very different opinions of this movie.
Yeah.
I don't want to give any spoilers because like this movie is, I think, making the rounds. I don't even think it's going to be available until like next month or something.
Well,
for VOD.
Are you uploading this tonight?
I'm going to upload this. Yeah, it'll be out on. Yeah,
because it's the actual run doesn't actually start until tomorrow.
Okay.
Which is the Friday. We saw like an early screening of it.
Yeah, and I know that I think it's going to be on VOD.
And it's
like
going to be on VOD,
like on the 14th or something, like in February.
Yeah, and I think at the same time it hits UHD and Blu-ray.
Yeah. So, but I don't want to be too spoilery about this.
And I don't want to be too discouraging of people seeing this because
no. Yeah, and I don't want to either
because I do believe that there's a very specific vision that works.
Yes. There are things I like very much in this. Two things in particular I like very much in this. So here's the gist of the story. Nicolas Cage and Jolie Richardson. She was in Event Horizon, wasn't she?
Yes, I was going to mention that's very Lovecraftian.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah.
I hadn't seen her in ages.
I hadn't either.
I was kind of amazed by how, I mean, she's aged, obviously. Everybody ages, but I hadn't seen her so long that it was sort of shocking.
Right.
Yeah.
So she's, so they're the parents of 3 kids. They live in a farm outside of the town of Arkham, which is Lovecraft.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
Arkham, Massachusetts. In fact, for those who don't know, that's where Arkham City got its name, was from Lovecraft.
Yes.
Yes.
So Gotham City, Arkham Asylum.
Arkham Asylum. Yes,
yeah,
sorry.
No. Something else is Arkham City.
But you're right.
Though.
Arkham Asylum got its name from...
There is something that's Arkham City, though.
Maybe.
I don't remember what it is. Anyway.
But yes, this is the town of Arkham, Massachusetts.
Right.
But yes, thank you for correcting me.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's what I'm here for.
But it was a purposeful nod, Arkham Asylum, to Lovecraft. Yes.
Right. So anyway, then there's also like Innsmouth, all the other ones that are names of stories or towns in the books or whatever.
And just to show my ignorance, I didn't realize that the Necronomicon was a Lovecraft creation.
No, I didn't either.
I had no idea.
I had no idea.
But it is.
I had no idea. Yeah. So anyway, so they are going about their life, doing their thing. Apparently, Jolie Richardson is recovering from cancer. Like she had a surgery or something.
Yeah, I want to say it was breast cancer.
Maybe because she's very she does not want to be intimate. She feels ugly. So I would assume it would be something like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, they one night a meteor lands, and it
just so happens to be the night that Nicolas Cage and Jolie Richardson
are trying to
have sex for the first time in 6 months.
Yeah. So he smells like this really rotten smell around it. That doesn't seem to affect anybody else.
Yeah.
People, like the littlest kid was awake at the time and like had like a complete flip out.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of this weird stuff that's going on. As time passes, the meteorite disappears, but new flora show up.
Yeah, the vegetation is very strange, and
there's like a purple lightning that like hits the Anyway,
if you've seen Annihilation, think Annihilation. There's almost like this veil of being that has permeated this area, and it's moving outward.
Yes,
it's getting larger.
Yes, and so there is a hydrologist who's coming along to survey the land because a new hydro station is going to be put in with a giant dam and provide fresh drinking water for basically like all of New England. Was what I was understanding.
Yeah.
And
the plotting around all of that was a bit vague.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the family, meanwhile, is going a little insane.
Yeah.
And in some cases, a lot insane.
Yeah.
over a period of time.
And
how
that's-
long? I don't know.
Yeah, that's where it gets really interesting for me, and where I think maybe it gets less interesting for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I don't want to give away the end of the movie, but I will say this as my opening salvo here on my feelings for this movie. This is my least favorite kind of horror movie. And I know that you like things that are bleak like this, because there is an awfully bleak ending to this movie.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily bother me as much. What bothers me in these types of horror stories is when there is absolutely no there's no reason for this bad stuff to happen to somebody. Like when you watch a slasher movie, okay, the kids go off and have sex. They're going to die.
Right.
That's a bad message. I get it. I know. But there's at least okay, they're doing something. They're off smoking pot or they're off having sex or whatever. You know that there's something that will eventually catch up with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sometimes there's collateral damage around that where people just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But when every single person is the person who's in the wrong place at the wrong time, it makes me feel bad, man. Like bad. Like I was mostly depressed during this movie.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that. I mean, that's totally valid. I don't think that, people are going to have that reaction to this type of horror. I mean, that's horror. That's the great thing about it is it has different types of horror can affect people different way. I don't like super like misanthropic horror. I don't like it when humanity is just shit on in every way, shape, or form, and there's like no hope, right? And I don't think that this movie is misanthropic in any way, but it is definitely bleak in the sense that there are things we don't understand in this universe that can destroy us.
Yeah. And maybe that is partially the idea of I'd rather be ignorant to that. Yeah. And just go on living my life.
But now, I also find it sort of entertaining to think about, right? Not that we could be annihilated at any time, but that it's sort of like the idea that, you know, there's the Genesis in the Bible and the God story, right? Or whatever you want to call it. And then, you've got your Allah and your Yahweh and all these different gods, right? But how is that any less possible or more possible than Cthulhu?
Well, sure,
right?
Sure.
Or the fucking flying spaghetti monster. And that's what I like about it. It's like this. It's sort of like this chaotic balance to the idea that maybe there is something that we don't understand in the universe, but it could also be this.
Yeah,
you know?
Sure. No, I don't disagree with that at all. It's just not my. I mean, so I don't want to do spoilers because this is so new, and people are going to have a hard time seeing it for about a month, probably until it comes out on.
Yeah. For sure.
So there is something that is horrific that happens to the mother and the smallest child.
Yep.
And while, again, I don't want to say that was part of the stuff I don't like. Like, again, like I said, there are collateral damage in some of these horror movies. I get it. You're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. They were in the wrong place at the wrong time for this specific thing to happen to them.
Right.
It was how long it carried on.
Oh, I know.
It was agonizing. And it's just, that's not really what I want to sign up for.
I will say in its defense that the way it made me feel actually kind of finally put a dent in that thick armor that I've built up over decades of watching horror films.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of felt like I probably would have felt as a 10-year-old seeing that.
Yeah,
You
what's
know?
funny is I
Like,
didn't feel that way.
it made
like
me-
I'm like, whoa, what's happening?
It's incredibly disturbing. It is one of the most disturbing things I've seen in a horror film in a long time. And you're
okay.
right. And it's because of how long they hold on it, and the sound design.
Yeah.
Oh my God, the gurgling and the screaming
Yeah.
and how long it goes on. You're right. It just gets under your skin.
Right. So yeah. So,
So
I mean,
I just found that incredibly effective.
yeah. No, it's effective, and I'm not saying that it's effective because I don't want to say just because it wasn't my taste
Yeah. Yeah.
that it's bad.
Right. Sure.
I'm not going to be the internet.
And
here.
I'm not going to be the guy who says, "Oh, you didn't think that was
Right.
the
You're
best
not-
thing in horror ever."
Right. You're not going to be the guy who calls me stupid for
Right.
it not being my taste.
Right.
Yeah, you can't account for taste.
But the thing that I think is definitively true is that everything about that scene had a purpose
yes.
and a vision.
Yes.
And it accomplished exactly what Richard Stanley wanted it to accomplish.
Yes. And it is something that I'm sure he thought, this is the line.
Yeah.
You're either going to be on one side or the other.
Right.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
And that's effective filmmaking. He's a good filmmaker.
He is.
Now, I will say that there are two things that I very, very much liked in this movie. The daughter and the older son.
Yep.
They were fantastic.
They
And
were
that's,
excellent.
Madeline Arthur and Brendan Mayer. They are fantastic in this movie.
Yep.
They are sympathetic. They are easy to like. I love their dynamic together. They felt like a real family.
Yeah.
And I could have watched 3 hours of those two characters trying to get out of this situation. Because even though I wanted out of this situation,
Yeah.
I wanted them to come with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah.
come on, let's go. Let's go.
Yep.
They were really good. And you see it from her in the very first scene.
Yeah.
Like she cares a lot. Like she's trying to do a spell, a Wiccan spell to get rid of the cancer in her mom. And it's like she cares.
That's
now
what
she doesn't want to show it to the family, but she cares.
That's what I love about those two is they both are so filled with angst, but yet they don't really hide their love of their parents very well.
No.
Right? They do care. I love when the son tells his father, Nicolas Cage, when he's walking out of the room, that he loves him.
Yeah.
I loved that. It felt so real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's those two were I mean, you talk about some of the most effective stuff, the horrific thing and how that played out, and then these two characters, like you want them to solve everything.
Yeah.
And you think they're going to. You think they're going to, but oh well. So I'm gonna kind of go through my list of my little nitpicks.
Yeah.
Because bringing up those two characters brings up my first point, which are some missed opportunities, I think. Whereas you have the Nicolas Cage and Madeline Arthur relationship, that is really, really well written. Like he will basically let her get away with murder. In a way, I think he sees himself in her. And it plays out well when he starts becoming his father and he gets mad at her. Like he would get, like his father got mad at him. Then you have, but where I feel like there's a missed opportunity is her relationship with her mother. I feel like that wasn't, there was something there, but they never did anything with it. Like, there's a big scene early on where they're talking, where the parents are talking about becoming their parents and their fear of becoming their parents. And how much Nicolas Cage believes he's never going to be like his father. And Jolie Richardson thinks that she is becoming her mother.
Right.
And so that plays out the very next day when she kind of rags on the daughter for what she's wearing and how she obviously is trying to lead the hydrologist on.
Right.
And it's like, okay, that's cool. But it doesn't go anywhere after that.
Right.
So I kind of feel like it's like, oh, that's kind of a missed opportunity. Like, there was something there that was that dynamic.
Yeah, I get the feeling that maybe, I don't know. I mean, Richard Stanley stands by every minute in this movie, and he wouldn't change a thing. So
Sure.
So maybe it wasn't something that was cut for time. But you're right. It does. Her relationship with her children feels a little less fleshed out than the father's. But it's fucking Nicolas Cage. He sucks up all the oxygen in the room.
That's true. She does. One relationship gets fleshed out.
Well, yes.
Yeah, so
and maybe that's all we need.
Maybe that's it. Yeah. Funny you put it that way. And speaking of Nick Cage becoming his father's voice, the impersonation of Donald Trump.
Oh my gosh.
Is
my gosh.
insane.
There are many insane Nicolas Cage moments in this, and that is one of my critiques.
It took me out.
Yeah,
of it. It's like I'm waiting for Nicolas Cage to become Nicolas Cage.
I don't feel like
it's like is he gonna get Lovecrafted into Nicolas Cage?
Right. I don't feel like that Richard Stanley had control of Nicolas Cage's
Probably
performance.
didn't.
I feel like you look at Nicolas Cage in a movie like Mandy, where I feel like he is perfectly controlled. I think that Panos gave Cage specific moments
I'm going to let the leash go a little bit.
to
Yep.
allow him to exercise whatever he needed to exercise. But in almost every other scene, his performance was very measured and reined in. I don't think that Richard Stanley did a good enough job of that in this movie.
Right.
And I wouldn't want that job.
No.
Because you're right, it took me out of it.
Well, because how much of his casting was Richard Stanley versus the producers who worked with him on Mandy?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so both of these things are kind of very similar. So this is obviously like the meteorite that crashes is obviously meant to be something of a black hole or a singularity, because it was referenced before it landed. It's like, oh, you interested in black holes or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's referenced. It sinks into the ground after it gets shot at by lightning. It seems to warp everything around it. And the son, the older son, says it's changing things around. This is like a black hole.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen that play. There's hints that there's a time problem.
Yeah.
Because like many days and nights pass.
Yes.
But it may have just been a day.
Right.
So I would have loved to have seen more of that. Let that be a little bit more obvious.
I felt like it was obvious.
Well, I mean, but what I mean by
but
is
I also
play
feel,
with
but
that
I
a
also
little
feel
bit
like
more.
if you play with it too much, it loses the effect of it being disorienting.
Fair enough. So one of the things that I kept trying to hear whenever they were calling each other was I kept waiting to hear things that they had said previously.
Oh, that'd be neat. Yeah.
Or that they would say later.
Right.
So let that be like where the time, like let the audio part become lost in that
That's
time.
a little bit more of the sort of the playground that Annihilation uses. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. Because yes, you're right. There's the closer you are to a black hole, it eats time itself, right?
Yep.
I mean, there is no real time.
There's all sorts of interesting theory
all sorts
on that.
of funky stuff going on.
Yeah, like how you can basically see several things at once, and like how it warps around, and there's enough theory to even consider orbiting a different type of star could be a different time than what we perceive here.
But there was an entire day that passed for the kids that did not pass for the parents when they left for the hospital. Yes. And I found that to be fascinating.
Yeah, and there seemed like there were a lot of missing days where it's like, and then there were times where it's like where she got sick and then like the daughter got sick and then she was perfectly fine. Yeah. Like 3 minutes later in the movie time. So it's like, were those were those scenes switched or something, like purposely switched because of the time fuck up? So I don't know. I would have liked to have seen I could have gotten lost in that and just loved that if I got to see more of that.
Yeah. There could even have been a way of making things less bleak if you played with that in the right way as well.
Yeah, because there could be a way that you could say, well, we can fix it.
Right.
You know.
Right.
But anyway, so that leads to my last nitpick. And I was struggling with rules a little.
Yeah.
Now, maybe this is a Lovecraft thing.
I think it's a Lovecraft thing, but yeah, continue.
With Mandy, for example, there are things that you can write off and say, this is all a nightmare, or this is all drugs, or this is all just the way things are in the world when those fucking demons show up.
Right.
You know, it's like, okay, this could just be a nightmare. This could be like a break in sanity.
The horn of Abraxas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it could just be a break in sanity, right?
Right.
And you can explain that away, and that becomes the rule. I mentioned Pacific Rim earlier. It's like there's a very simple rule. Creatures are coming out of this hole in the ocean. They are testing different styles of Earth-like creatures that aren't Earth creatures,
right?
That they're very alien, to see what works best to wipe out the planet and make it their own. That makes sense. You can only pass through it if you have some of the DNA with it. Perfect. Makes sense. I'm on board. But this, like, I was having a hard time. It's like, was it the meteorite that was causing people to change? Was it drinking the water? Was it simply touching the water, as it was in one case, versus drinking the water that was infected?
Yeah.
Was it even the water? Was it something else? Right. Was it, because like there's a scene with Tommy Chong where it makes it sound like that there are creatures that he is picking up, not the water. He's not focused on the water. He's focused until later. Right. But he's focused on hearing the creature. Now, is that playing with the time? I don't know. I don't know what the rules are here.
That doesn't bother me quite as much, but I do know that the water, that was a literal element that was added to this adaptation.
Okay.
I don't believe that had any bearing in the original short story. Okay. But I think it was added as sort of like an ecological sort of theme, right? Yeah,
because there were times where I was like running through however many Flint, Michigan jokes I could crank out inside my head.
I think that was an intentional choice, right? to kind of draw a parallel to environmental disaster. Yeah.
Because let's face it, the realism of us being wiped out by an interdimensional beast is not as great as ecological disaster.
Right.
But there were certain, like, I love that little mantis guy.
Oh yeah. The special effects in this, as far as computer generated animation, are pretty sparse. But when they're used, it's used really well.
Because again, that made me think again of Pacific Rim. Here's a thing that looks like something that is of our planet, something that we can perceive, but it's different.
Yeah.
And it is for its own being fit to survive. Mm-hmm. So I like that.
And I mean, this is a tricky property, I think, to adapt, because it is pure Lovecraft. It's also a very simple story that fits into a larger universe that Lovecraft has developed.
Yeah, so
with a real mythology, right?
Yeah, you bring up a good point, because it was released today, so I'm fine with spoiling this. Yes, this is the first part of a trilogy, which makes me feel a little bit better about the bleakness, because maybe there is a fix.
And the next one he's doing is Dunwich Horror.
Right, and Dunwich is another town. Yeah. I mean, it makes me feel a little bit better about the bleakness, knowing it's like, oh, this is just chapter 1.
And they drop a lot of clues. There's the Necronomicon makes an appearance.
They say all the towns.
Yeah.
It's like there's all there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I don't know.
And you're also up against a very specific visual problem. And the fact that the book talks about a color that no one has seen before.
Yes.
Right?
And in the movie, it's like, well, that's just purple,
Right.
But I will say I do like the fact that it never stays one color
Yeah,
long.
it shimmers.
It shifts and it's iridescent.
Yeah.
Which I've always been fascinated with iridescent colors, like because that part of that is that I do like fish tanks and stuff. Like there's a lot of fish that are iridescent. It's like that's just fucking cool.
But I love to just while I was watching the movie, I was thinking in my brain, what it even mean to conceive of a new color, right? It's a really hard thing to think about. You start to think about it and you just kind of get lost.
Well,
It's like you just hit these roadblocks of things that you can't perceive.
Well,
and that's what I love about Lovecraft in this movie is there are things that everything that is at play in here are things that are impossible to perceive.
Sure.
And that's sort of the whole point of the movie.
To perceive it, your brain will literally melt.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
it's that's kind of the In the Mouth of Madness Event Horizon type of feel
certainly.
to it.
Yeah.
So what else do you have for this?
No, I think that covers it.
I mean, obviously you liked it considerably more than I did.
Yeah, I did. This is an early top 10 contender for me for 2020.
Well, it is number 1 for me currently for 2020. It's real shaky up there, but no. And again, I don't want anybody to think I'm just kind of shitting on this movie. It's just not my flavor of horror. It's not my flavor of sci-fi either.
I really do though. My one thing that makes me cringe is Cage. He just like a more.
He's like a bull in the china shop.
A more subtle performance would have done this movie a lot of favors.
Yeah.
But then the flip side of that, though, is the movie is so dark
that maybe you need that life.
Need that sort of zaniness?
Maybe you needed the life. Yeah.
To keep us from totally like wanting to kill ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So it's weird. It's a weird sort of, maybe it works.
Maybe it does. I don't know. I mean, it's a movie that I feel pretty safe that I probably won't clamor to see again.
Sure.
Again, I mean, if I were to give it, like, if we were to do the regular 5-star review thing, I'd still give it 3 stars.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of art here.
Yeah.
And those performances by those 2 kids,
they're
not even kids, they're adults.
Yes.
But these adults playing these kids,
playing teenagers,
is just stunning.
Yeah.
Like I want them to be in every movie that I see forever.
Well, the kid, you should watch The Guest because he's charming as fuck in The Guest, and his sister is the blonde from It Follows. She's great.
Oh yeah.
I can never remember her name, but that's a great movie.
Okay,
he's great in it. But if for no other reason, I'm so glad this movie happened because I think it has given people faith in Richard Stanley.
Yeah.
The man can make a movie.
He's making a good,
and he's gonna make more movies, and that makes me so excited.
Yeah. I would like to see more of his movies, and I will. If the Dunwich Horror comes out next year, I'll go see it. I'll go see it. Yeah, let's see where this goes.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I feel a little bit better, and it's just like, hey, we got to start someplace.
Yeah. Well, it would be neat if what he does as he continues the mythology is it gives more context to this movie.
Maybe some of my items will get ticked off one by one.
And I know, and I think there's potential there because things that happen in Color Out of Space, we don't know the result of those things. Those things could have a completely different conclusion in another movie,
right? Which
would make a lot of sense in a
there's
Lovecraftian way.
Yeah. There is what am I trying to think of where there's something I'm trying to think of where there are things like that where it's like they just keep where something begins is a completely different thing at the end, and it's like well, you gotta somehow get to the planet, right? The first few things you do are going to be like fucking the thing, you're going to be merging creatures together and shit.
Right.
But then maybe at the end they look more like normal people and you just don't know that they're aliens, and it's fucking terrifying that way.
Well,
too.
I always think about, the theory of evolution, right? And natural selection. I think about, all the food that's poisonous.
Mm-hmm.
That
we had to figure
that shit out, right? So there's a lot of people who died just from trying berries,
right?
So that's a weird way of putting it. But the people, the people who move on to something else in this movie might not be moving on to like an annihilation or death.
Right.
They can be moving on to some other form of existence that we can't comprehend
until we see it.
Right.
Right. And then there's the because like that's the me being a fan of sci-fi and like especially like Star Trek and stuff like that. It's like, hey man, I'd love to go to another planet. But I know realistic me knows that I will die instantly because that bacteria shit that I need to live here isn't there. And aliens are going to come here and die instantly.
Yeah.
It's like,
right.
There's no good ending to any of these things. And like, but the things that don't die will, power on. So we don't know what the end of these creatures are.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the pollen that has to.
And I will say this too. I think that if you are a fan of Lovecraft, I think this movie is for you. I agree. I think you'll be really happy with this movie.
I'm not going to say. I am not going to not recommend this to horror or to tripped out sci-fi fans.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say with an asterisk that it just wasn't my flavor.
Yep, fair enough.
I mean, it's like saying chocolate ice cream isn't my flavor, but I'm still going to eat the chocolate ice cream.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. It's just
Yeah.
Yeah. So next week we have best of 2019.
Yes, we do.
How about that?
Yeah.
Looking back, we're already starting 2020, but we still have some business left in 2019.
We do. We got to close the books.
We got to close them books. We got to wrap it up, and I want to wrap it up before the Oscars. Whereas last year we did not do that.
No, we didn't.
We didn't. So yeah,
I'm in a much better place this year as far as what I've seen. There's not really a lot hanging out there that I feel like I need to see. I'll see it, but I don't think it would crack my top 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's one, but you're going to talk about it anyway, so we're safe.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the movie that got somebody mad at me on Facebook. So, anyway, whatever.
So cool.
All right. So so Wednesdays, new episodes of Film Seizure. Mondays, new episodes of Monster Mondays. Go to filmseizure.com, see all those wonderful places you can follow us and all of that good stuff.
Yes.
Until next week when we close the books on 2019.
I'm Jason Oliver.
I am Geoff Arbuckle, and don't forget to save me the aisle seat.
It's just a color, but it burns.
Can you believe me now?
I don't know what I believe anymore.